The request. The grand amphitheater of cosmic governance floated in the neutral zone between galaxies, a structure of crystalline spires and gravity-defying platforms that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic politics. Today it would witness something unprecedented. Ambassador Keiko Nairobi stood at the petitioner's platform, her dark skin gleaming under the amphitheater's prismatic lights, her posture radiating calm confidence despite the mocking laughter echoing through the chamber. Her silver diplomatic uniform bore Earth's emblem, a blue marble wrapped in olive branches, and she wore it with pride. The Sovereign Council occupied the 7 highest thrones, each representing a civilization that had proven itself worthy through military might, technological supremacy, or cultural dominance spanning millennia. At the center throne sat High Adjudicator Vexthor, a being of pure crystallized thought whose form shifted between dimensions as he spoke. A council seat? Vexthor's voice resonated through every being's consciousness. Your species discovered faster-than-light travel merely 30 cycles ago. You control a single star system. And you dare request representation among the Sovereign Seven? From the observer galleries, hundreds of alien species erupted in derision. The serpentine Serati hissed with amusement. The four-armed Krelthers slapped their appendages together in their equivalent of mocking applause. The methane-breathing Voidzingers released puffs of gas that their translators rendered as sardonic laughter. Keiko waited. She had expected this. Humanity always started as the underdog. We understand the Council's skepticism, she said, her voice amplified across the chamber. But we bring something none of the current members possess. And what might that be? This came from Councillor Zireneke, the military commander of the Krelther Dominion, whose empire spanned 40 systems and whose war fleets had crushed a dozen rebellions. Amusing primitive weapons? Quaint philosophical notions? Your species is children playing at galactic politics. Keiko smiled. We bring perspective. We bring adaptability. We bring the one thing this council has lost after 10,000 years of the same 7 voices making every decision. Which is? Demanded Councillor Elwesisandra of the Ethereal Collective, her translucent form pulsing with irritation. We bring change. The laughter intensified. Even Vexthor's crystalline form seemed to vibrate with amusement. The Sovereign Council was established on principles of merit, announced Councillor Drethys, the hive mind representative whose consciousness inhabited 17 bodies simultaneously. To join, a species must demonstrate one of 3 achievements: technological transcendence, military dominance, or cultural influence spanning no fewer than 20 systems. You qualify for none of these. Then we request the trial of proving, Keiko said. The laughter stopped. Silence crashed through the amphitheater like a physical force. The trial of proving was ancient, written into the Council's founding charter but never invoked in living memory. It allowed any petitioning species to compete directly against a sitting council member in a test of their choosing. Victory would grant them the defeated member's seat. You cannot be serious, Zernike growled. No species has invoked the trial in 3,000 years. The last who tried was obliterated so completely their homeworld became a cautionary tale. We invoke it nonetheless, Keiko replied. It is our right under the charter. Vexthor's form solidified, a sign of his focused attention. You understand what this means? You must choose which council member to challenge. They, in turn, choose the nature of the trial. Defeat means your species is barred from petitioning for council representation for 500 cycles. Your entire civilization will be marked as presumptuous fools. And victory? Keiko asked. Victory grants you their seat, their voting power, and their authority over galactic law. Vexthor paused. But there will be no victory. The trial of proving exists to remind upstart species of their place. From behind Keiko, a figure emerged from Earth's delegation. Commander Rafe Okonkwo, humanity's finest military strategist, his scarred face telling stories of 100 terrestrial conflicts. Beside him walked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her brilliant mind having revolutionized 3 fields of quantum science. And finally, Marcus Webb, a cultural anthropologist who had made first contact with 4 alien species and turned each encounter into a diplomatic success. We choose, Keiko said, to challenge the Krelther Dominion. Zernike rose from his throne, all 4 arms spreading wide. His exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian, and his mandibles clicked with anticipation. You choose war then. Foolish primates. Very well. I select military conquest as our trial. Your forces against mine in the arena of broken empires. Keiko's smile never wavered. We accept. As the chamber erupted in excited chatter, Vexthor's voice cut through the noise. 30 cycles from this day the trial will commence. Prepare yourselves, humans. You have chosen a path that ends in either legend or extinction. But Keiko had already turned away, her team following her toward the exit. They had 30 days to do the impossible. They had 30 days to show the galaxy what humanity could do. Preparation. The war room aboard the UNS Persistence hummed with activity. The United Nations exploration ship, humanity's flagship, had been converted into a mobile command center, its corridors now filled with military personnel, scientists, and diplomats working around the clock. Commander Rafe Okonkwo stood before a holographic display showing the arena of broken empires, a designated combat zone the size of a solar system, littered with the wreckage of ancient civilizations. His team of military analysts surrounded him, their faces grim. The Krelther Dominion brings overwhelming force, Lieutenant Sarah Chin reported, pulling up tactical data. Intelligence suggests Zirin AK will deploy at least 200 warships, each comparable to our largest carriers. They've crushed every military opposition they've faced for 3 centuries. Numbers, Rafe muttered. They're thinking in numbers. Because numbers have always won, Chin replied. Their doctrine is simple: overwhelming firepower, coordinated assault, absolute destruction. They don't adapt because they've never needed to. Rafe's scarred face creased into something resembling a smile. Then we don't fight their fight. Sun Tzu said it best: appear weak when you are strong, strong when you are weak. We have 30 ships. Make the Krelther think we have 300. Across the ship, Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked in her laboratory, surrounded by alien technology samples and experimental equipment. Her research team had been analyzing every piece of data they could access about Krelther technology, looking for weaknesses, patterns, anything exploitable. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency algorithm, Yuki explained to her assistant, Dr. James Morrison. Predictable, efficient, and designed to repel conventional weapons. But there's a 0.003-second gap during frequency transition. 3 milliseconds, James said flatly. No weapon system we have can target and fire that quickly. No conventional weapon system, Yuki corrected, her eyes bright with inspiration. But what if we don't use conventional weapons? The Krelther expect missiles, railguns, energy weapons. What if we give them something they've never encountered? She pulled up her latest prototype, a quantum entanglement weapon that could bypass shields entirely by targeting the space the ship occupied rather than the ship itself. Theoretical, untested, and probably impossible. Probably. You have 29 days, she told herself. In the diplomatic quarter, Marcus Webb sat across from Keiko Nairobi, reviewing psychological profiles of every council species. Understanding the audience was as crucial as winning the battle. The other council members want us to fail, Marcus said, scrolling through reports. But not all of them want us destroyed. The ethereal collective values innovation. The chrono savants respect bold action. If we can impress them during the trial, we create political pressure on the council to acknowledge our victory. Assuming we win, Keiko replied. When we win, Marcus corrected. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to unite diverse perspectives. Every person on this ship brings something unique. The Krelther? They're a monoculture. One species, one way of thinking, one approach to every problem. That's their weakness. Keiko stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the gathered human fleet. 30 ships against 200. Mathematically impossible. Strategically suicidal. Perfectly human. The entire galaxy is watching, she said quietly. Every species that's ever been dismissed, overlooked, or conquered. They need to see that the powerful can be challenged. That the system can change. No pressure, Marcus said with a slight grin. Back in the command center, the leadership team assembled for their final strategic meeting before the trial. Rafe, Yuki, Marcus, Keiko, and Admiral Elizabeth Kowalski, the fleet commander whose tactical brilliance had ended 3 terrestrial wars before humanity reached the stars. Let's establish our framework, Elizabeth began, her silver hair pulled back severely. Zirin expects a traditional engagement. He'll position his fleet in a standard encirclement formation, use his numerical advantage to restrict our movement, then systematically destroy us ship by ship. So we don't engage traditionally, Rafe said. We break into smaller units, use the arena's debris fields for cover, turn his numbers into a disadvantage. Make him fight in close quarters where his coordination breaks down. We'll need something to even the technological gap, Yuki added. I have 3 experimental systems. 1 might work. 2 might not destroy our own ships when activated. All three are completely untested in combat. Use all three, Keiko decided. The Krelther expect us to play it safe. We won't. There's another factor, Marcus interjected. This trial is being broadcast across the entire galactic network. Billions of beings watching. The Krelther fight for victory. We need to fight for something more. We need to fight for inspiration. Elizabeth nodded slowly. We're not just trying to defeat them. We're trying to show the galaxy that humanity deserves to be heard. 29 days, Rafe said. We train like we've never trained before. We adapt every strategy, question every assumption, and prepare for everything. And if we fail? Someone asked. Keiko's voice was steel. Then we fail spectacularly enough that the next species brave enough to challenge the Council will learn from our mistakes. But we're not going to fail. The team dispersed each to their crucial tasks. The countdown had begun. The arena. The arena of broken empires lived up to its name. Vast beyond comprehension, it stretched across billions of kilometers, filled with the skeletal remains of civilizations that had destroyed themselves in ancient conflicts. Shattered space stations the size of moons drifted among asteroid fields of pulverized planets. Energy storms crackled through regions where reality itself had been torn apart by weapons too terrible to remember. Into this graveyard sailed humanity's fleet. Admiral Elizabeth Kowalski stood on the bridge of the Persistence, watching her tactical display as the 30 human vessels spread into their predetermined formations. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who understood the stakes. Each captain had trained relentlessly for this moment. Krelther fleet detected, Lieutenant Chin announced. Matching intel projections. 217 combat vessels, organized in the claw formation. On the view screen, the Krelther armada appeared like a swarm of metallic predators. Each ship bristled with weapons, their dark hulls absorbing light, their engines burning with controlled fusion. At the fleet's center, Zireneke's flagship, the unbroken Talon, dwarfed even humanity's largest vessels. Open channel to all human ships, Elizabeth commanded, and broadcast to the Council observers. Throughout the arena, in the amphitheater, and across countless worlds, beings tuned in to watch. This was the first trial of proving in millennia. Entertainment. Bloodsport. A lesson in humility. Elizabeth's face appeared on a billion screens. To the Krelther Dominion and the Sovereign Council, humanity stands ready. We fight not for conquest but for recognition. We fight not to destroy but to prove. And we fight with the knowledge that every species watching this trial was once where we are now, seeking a voice in the galaxy's future. Zireneke's mocking reply boomed across communication channels. Inspirational words for a funeral. When your ships burn, remember that you chose this fate. Krelther fleet, advance. Destroy them. The massive armada surged forward, their formation tightening like a closing fist. Standard Krelther doctrine. Overwhelming assault, no subtlety, no mercy. All ships, execute Protocol Hydra, Elizabeth ordered calmly. Humanity's fleet scattered. Not in retreat but in calculated dispersal. 30 ships became 30 independent units, each diving toward different sections of the arena's debris fields. The Krelther formation, designed for coordinated assault, suddenly had no single target. Zireneke's frustration was evident. They run like cowards. Hunt them down. Every ship is a target. But the Krelther Dominion had never fought an enemy like humanity. Their military history was filled with glorious battles where their superior numbers crushed organized resistance. They had no experience with guerrilla warfare, no doctrine for adaptive tactics, no training for opponents who refused to fight the expected battle. The UNS Shanghai, a light cruiser commanded by Captain Wei Zhao, ducked behind the wreckage of an ancient dreadnought. 15 Krelther ships pursued, their weapons lighting up the darkness. Weapons locked on us, his tactical officer reported. Let them think they have us, Wei responded. Activate Tanaka Protocol 1. The experimental quantum distortion field activated, creating a false sensor signature 1 kilometer to the Shanghai's port side. The Krelther ships fired at the Phantom, their massive energy blasts vaporizing empty space. Before they could recalibrate, the Shanghai's railguns opened fire from its true position, not at the Krelther ships, but at the ancient dreadnought's hull. The carefully calculated shots destabilized the wreckage, sending a cascade of debris directly into the Krelther formation. 3 enemy ships disabled, 2 destroyed, Tactical reported. Remaining 10 breaking off pursuit. Across the arena, similar engagements played out. Human ships used the environment as a weapon, turned the Krelther's numerical advantage into a coordination nightmare, and employed technologies their enemy had never encountered. The UNS Mumbai, under Captain Priya Sharma, lured 20 Krelther vessels into an energy storm region, then activated their experimental phase shift drive. The human ship briefly slipped into a parallel dimensional state, immune to conventional weapons. The Krelther ships, caught in the storm and firing blindly, damaged each other more than their intended target. Impossible. Ziraneke roared from his flagship. These primitives use technologies we have no records of. How? On the Persistence, Dr. Yuki Tanaka monitored her experimental systems from the science deck. Because we innovate, she muttered to herself. We don't rely on 10,000 years of the same tactics. We invent. We adapt. We improvise. Marcus Webb watched the battle unfold from the observation deck, recording everything for his real-time diplomatic commentary being broadcast to the Council. Notice, he said to the galaxy, that humanity isn't simply trying to destroy. We disable when we can. We defend rather than assault. This is not conquest. This is demonstration. The first hour of battle ended with the score showing 12 Krelther ships destroyed or disabled, 0 human casualties. Zernike stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The impossible was happening. The humans were winning. The turning point. 6 hours into the trial, the arena had transformed into a three-dimensional chessboard where humanity played with pieces the Krelther didn't understand. The debris fields, energy storms and gravitational anomalies that made the arena of broken empires dangerous had become humanity's greatest allies. Commander Rafe Okonkwo coordinated the overall strategy from the Persistence, his mind processing a dozen engagements simultaneously. Years of terrestrial warfare had taught him that conventional thinking led to conventional defeats. Against a superior force you didn't fight their battle, you made them fight yours. Krelther fleet is fragmenting, Lieutenant Chin reported. Ziraneke has divided his forces into 7 hunting groups, each pursuing our scattered ships. He's frustrated, Rafe observed. Abandoning doctrine. Good. Frustrated commanders make mistakes. On the tactical display, the Krelther's neat military formations had devolved into chaotic pursuit patterns. Their numerical advantage meant nothing when they couldn't bring their full force to bear in coordinated strikes. Captain Rodriguez reports the Brasilia group has lured 40 Krelther ships into Sector 77, Chin continued. Rafe smiled. Sector 77 contained the wreckage of an ancient weapons platform, still radiating low-level energy signatures after millennia. Captain Isabella Rodriguez was brilliant at using environmental hazards. Tell her to execute Tanaka Protocol 3 on my mark, Rafe commanded. Across the arena, the UNS Brasilia and her escort ships raced through a canyon formed by the broken remains of a megastructure. 40 Krelther vessels pursued, their weapons blazing. Energy blasts carved molten scars into the ancient metal walls. They're gaining, Rodriguez's tactical officer warned. Let them, Rodriguez replied calmly. Weapons, prepare Protocol 3. Wait for Okonkwo's signal. The human ships reached the canyon's end, where the ancient weapons platform hung like a metallic moon. Its surface was pocked with craters and scorched by unimaginable weapons, but its core still pulsed with dormant energy. All ships now. Rafe's voice came through. The Brasilia and her escorts fired not at the pursuing Krelther, but at the weapons platform's exposed core. Dr. Tanaka's third experimental system, a resonance amplifier, transformed their conventional weapons into tuning forks that harmonized with the ancient platform's energy signature. The platform awakened. Defensive systems tens of thousands of years old recognized the Krelther ships as threats. Automated weapons that had destroyed species long forgotten locked onto the new targets. The ancient platform unleashed destruction that made modern weapons look like children's toys. 37 Krelther ships vanished in seconds. In the Krelther flagship's command center, Ziraneke watched the catastrophe unfold. His mandibles clicked in rage and, for the first time, uncertainty. This is trickery, he transmitted to the Council observers. They use ancient weapons not their own. They violate the spirit of the trial. High Adjudicator Vexthor's response was cold. The trial stipulates combat within the arena. All resources within the arena are permissible. Your own dominion has used environmental advantages in previous conflicts. The humans are simply more creative. Ziraneke's 4 fists clenched. Then we abandon restraint. All ships, converge on the human flagship. We end this now. 163 Krelther vessels turned as one, abandoning their scattered pursuits to form a spearhead aimed directly at the Persistence. They're coming for us, Admiral Elizabeth noted, watching the convergence. The entire remaining fleet. As planned, Keiko said from her position beside the admiral. Commander Okonkwo? Rafe checked his tactical board. Every human ship was positioned exactly where they needed to be. All pieces are in place. Execute protocol endgame. The Persistence didn't flee. Instead, it accelerated toward the oncoming armada, a single ship against more than 100, broadcasting a message to the entire galaxy. The Sovereign Council has ruled for 10,000 years on principles of might, Keiko's voice rang out. But might without wisdom is tyranny. Innovation without purpose is chaos. Humanity offers balance. We offer change. We offer hope to every species watching this trial who has ever been told they are too small, too young, too weak to matter. The Krelther fleet opened fire. Hundreds of weapons lit the void, enough destructive power to vaporize a planet. The Persistence activated Dr. Tanaka's ultimate innovation, the quantum entanglement network. In that instant, all 30 human ships became quantum-linked, sharing their shield harmonics, their processing power, their defensive capabilities. The concentrated fire hit not one ship's shields, but the distributed protective field of an entire fleet. The Persistence shuddered but held. And then humanity struck back. From 30 different positions, human ships fired kinetic munitions, not at the Krelther vessels, but at precisely calculated points in the surrounding debris field. The arena's wreckage had been carefully mapped, analyzed, and weaponized. Gravitational trajectories shifted. Ancient hulks moved. The debris field itself became a weapon, guided by human calculation and turned into a storm of metal that tore through the Krelther formation. Zireneke watched his fleet crumble. Impossible, he whispered. But it was happening. Victory and consequence. The battle's end came not with explosions but with silence. Zireneke's flagship, the unbroken Talon, hung dead in space. Its weapon systems were destroyed, its engines offline, its shields depleted. Around it floated the wreckage of 186 Krelther warships, not all destroyed but disabled, outmaneuvered, and defeated by a force 1/7 their size. Humanity's 30 ships, battered but intact, formed a protective perimeter around the Krelther survivors. Not as conquerors gloating over victory, but as equals establishing peace. Admiral Elizabeth Kowalski opened a channel to the Krelther flagship. Counselor Zireneke, the trial is concluded. By the terms you accepted, humanity claims victory. Do you acknowledge this result? The silence stretched. In the grand amphitheater, billions watched. Every species that had ever been conquered by the Krelther dominion watched with held breath. Every minor civilization dismissed by the council watched with hope. Finally, Zireneke's voice came through, stripped of its earlier arrogance. I acknowledge defeat. The humans have proven themselves worthy of a council seat. He paused. I do not understand how you accomplished this. We had every advantage. You had every traditional advantage, Commander Rafe responded. But warfare evolves. Strategy adapts. You fought the last war. We fought this one. Our ships will retrieve your survivors, Elizabeth added. Humanity takes no prisoners, only future colleagues. The galaxy has room enough for all voices, Counselor. Including yours. The broadcast shifted to the grand amphitheater, where the remaining 6 council members sat in various states of shock. High Adjudicator Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with complex emotions, surprise, respect, and calculated reassessment. By the ancient laws of the trial of proving, Vexthor announced, humanity has claimed victory through superior strategy, innovation, and tactical excellence. The Council recognizes Ambassador Keiko Nairobi as the new 7th member of the Sovereign Council, representing humanity and Earth. The amphitheater erupted. Some species cheered, seeing hope for their own futures. Others protested, fearing the disruption of 10,000 years of stable hierarchy. But the charter was absolute. The trial's results were binding. Counselor Alwesisandra of the Ethereal Collective spoke, her translucent form shimmering. The humans have proven resourceful. But resourcefulness alone does not qualify them to guide galactic policy. They know nothing of our laws, our history, our delicate balance. Then they will learn, said Counselor Vexthor. As all new members must. They broke every rule of conventional warfare, growled Counselor Drethys, the hive mind representative. They turned the arena itself into a weapon. They used experimental technologies. They won, interrupted Counselor Chen of the Chrono Savants, whose species experienced time non-linearly. I have observed countless timelines. In 97% of them, humanity eventually joined the Council. This merely accelerated the inevitable. Marcus Webb, watching from Earth's delegation, allowed himself a small smile. The political maneuvering had begun, exactly as he'd predicted. The council members were already dividing into factions: those who would oppose humanity's presence and those who saw opportunity in the change. Back at the arena, Dr. Yuki Tanaka supervised the recovery operations, her experimental systems having performed beyond expectations. 3 untested technologies, any one of which could have failed catastrophically, had instead become the foundation of victory. Dr. Tanaka, came a transmission from an unfamiliar source. This is Science Director Calvranis of the Ethereal Collective. Your quantum entanglement network is theoretically impossible by our models. I must understand how you accomplished it. Yuki smiled. I'd be happy to collaborate, Director. Science advances through shared knowledge, not hoarded secrets. The humans offer to share their innovations? Calvranis sounded shocked. The Krelther guard their technology jealously. The collective maintains strict proprietary controls. You would simply give this knowledge. We share what benefits all species, Yuki replied. That's what council members should do, isn't it? In the weeks following the trial, humanity's approach to council membership became clear. Rather than hoarding their victory and demanding immediate authority, they began building alliances, sharing technologies, and listening to the concerns of species both powerful and marginalized. Keiko established regular consultation sessions with minor species who had never had council access. Rafe offered strategic defense training to worlds threatened by piracy. Yuki created collaborative research initiatives. Marcus opened cultural exchange programs. The galaxy watched, fascinated and confused. Council members traditionally guarded their power jealously, maintaining their positions through strength and influence. Humanity was doing something different. They were using their council seat not to rule but to serve. 3 months after taking her seat, Keiko proposed the first new galactic law in 2 centuries, the Representation Expansion Act, which would create advisory positions for 50 minor species, giving them voice without vote. The council chamber erupted in debate. Change had come to the Sovereign Council. And it had come wearing a human face. The first crisis. Keiko's first major test as a council member came from an unexpected direction. The Serati Confederacy, a serpentine species controlling 12 systems, had been raiding the border worlds of the smaller Lumini people for decades. The raids were technically legal under existing galactic law. The Lumini had never been recognized as a sovereign species, making their worlds classified as unclaimed resources. It was a loophole the powerful had exploited for millennia. The current crisis began when the Serati escalated from raids to full occupation of the Lumini homeworld. Millions of Lumini refugees fled into neighboring systems, creating a humanitarian catastrophe. Minor species across the galaxy watched to see if the Council would act, or if the pattern of ignoring the weak would continue. In the Council chamber, Keiko stood before her colleagues. 4 months into her tenure, she still felt the weight of representing not just humanity, but everyone who had ever been dismissed. The Serati occupation of Lumina Prime violates the principle of sapient dignity, she argued. The Lumini are a sentient species with technology, culture, and organized society. That they lack military strength doesn't make them unclaimed resources. Supreme General Varshes of the Serati Confederacy, observing from the petitioner's platform, hissed with amusement. The human speaks of principles written nowhere in galactic law. The Lumini are prey species, evolved from herd animals. They have no warrior tradition, no defensive capability, no strength. In the natural order, the weak serve the strong. The natural order is a justification for tyranny, Keiko countered. Every species in this chamber was once weaker than they are now. Should you all have been enslaved during your development? Councillor Drethis, the hive mind representative, spoke with 17 voices simultaneously. The human makes an emotional argument, not a legal one. Galactic law is clear. Species without military capacity or council recognition have no inherent sovereignty. To change this would require rewriting 10,000 years of legal precedent. Then let's rewrite it, Keiko said simply. The chamber fell silent. Rewriting fundamental galactic law was theoretically possible but practically unthinkable. It required unanimous council approval and would affect countless existing treaties, resource agreements, and territorial claims. High Adjudicator Vexthor's crystalline form shifted thoughtfully. You propose to overturn the entire legal foundation of galactic civilization because you find it morally distasteful? I propose to evolve our civilization's legal foundation because it's unjust, Keiko corrected. Humanity spent centuries justifying slavery, colonialism, and oppression with legal frameworks. We learned, painfully, that laws which enable suffering must be changed, regardless of precedent. Naive idealism, Councillor Zireneke muttered. The former military commander had remained on the council as the Krelther Dominion's representative, his seat technically retained while humanity occupied an expanded seventh position, a compromise reached after the trial. The galaxy operates on power dynamics. Always has. Always will. Does it? Marcus Webb's voice came from Earth's advisory delegation. Councillor Zireneke, since humanity joined the council 4 months ago, how many minor species have petitioned for your assistance in trade negotiations, technological development, or diplomatic recognition? Zireneke's mandibles clicked irritably. 17. And how many petitioned you in the 4 months before humanity joined? Silence. None, Marcus continued. Because they feared you. Now they see that council members can serve rather than dominate. The galaxy's power dynamics are already changing. The question is whether this council will lead that change or be swept aside by it. Councillor Elwesisandra of the Ethereal Collective spoke, her form pulsing with calculated consideration. Even if we entertain this radical notion, what exactly does the human propose? We cannot extend full sovereignty to every species with opposable appendages and fire-making ability. Keiko pulled up a holographic document she'd spent weeks preparing. The Sapient Dignity Accords. A framework establishing that any species demonstrating tool use, abstract communication, and social organization possesses inherent rights that cannot be violated. This doesn't grant them council seats or military protections automatically, but it prevents their exploitation. And the Sorati's current claims to Lumina Prime? Varshes demanded. Would be invalidated, Keiko confirmed. Occupation of a sapient species' homeworld would become a violation of galactic law. You would be required to withdraw. Varshes's serpentine form coiled with rage. We invested resources in that occupation. You would simply erase our legitimate claims. They were never legitimate, Rafa Conquo said, stepping forward. They were exploitation dressed in legal language. And if the Sorati refused to withdraw peacefully, humanity volunteers to assist in their reconsideration. It was a direct challenge. Humanity's small fleet had defeated the Krelther Dominion. The threat was clear. Vex Thor raised a crystalline appendage for silence. This proposal is unprecedented. We will vote in one planetary cycle. Council members should consider carefully. This decision will echo through millennia. As the session adjourned, Keiko felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. Some hopeful. Some hostile. All watching to see if humanity's idealism could survive contact with galactic reality. The vote was 7 days away. The new galaxy. The council chamber had never been so crowded. The voting session on the Sapient Dignity Accords drew representatives from 300 species, minor and major alike. The gallery seats overflowed. Beings from across the galaxy watched via quantum-linked broadcast. This was more than a vote, it was a referendum on the galaxy's future. Keiko sat in the 7th council seat, the newest and most controversial addition to the chamber. Around her, the other 6 councillors maintained various expressions of contemplation, calculation, and in Zireneke's case, barely suppressed frustration. High Adjudicator Vex Thor called the session to order, his crystalline form refracting light across the assembled crowd. We gather to vote on humanity's proposal, the Sapient Dignity Accords. Before voting, each council member may speak. Councillor Drethus spoke first, 17 bodies voicing unity. The Hive recognizes the merit in protecting developing species. However, implementation concerns remain. Who determines sapience? Who enforces these protections? The bureaucratic expansion alone would be enormous. Which is why the Accords include a framework for implementation, Keiko responded. A sapient recognition committee, composed of scientists and ethicists from diverse species, would evaluate claims. Enforcement would be gradual, focusing first on preventing new violations while grandfathering existing legitimate arrangements. Legitimate arrangements, Varshes hissed from the observers section. Meaning the Sorati must abandon investments built over decades while others maintain their holdings? Meaning, Marcus Webb interjected, that species like the Sorati who have built their power on exploitation will need to find new economic models. The galaxy is full of opportunities for cooperative trade and mutual development. You've just been taking shortcuts. Councillor Chen of the Chrono Savants stirred, her temporal perception allowing her to see multiple timelines simultaneously. I have witnessed futures where these accords pass and futures where they fail. The galaxy that embraces sapient dignity flourishes with innovation and cooperation. The galaxy that rejects it stagnates, eventually collapsing under the weight of rebellions and resentment. She paused. I vote in favor of the accords. One vote for humanity's proposal. Councillor Elwesandra spoke next, her translucent form pulsing with measured consideration. The ethereal collective has always valued knowledge and innovation. We recognize that diversity of thought produces superior outcomes. Protecting developing species preserves future sources of innovation. She inclined her head toward Keiko. We vote in favor. 2 votes. Councillor Drethus's 17 bodies conferred among themselves in rapid chemical signals before speaking in unison. The hive finds the implementation framework acceptable. The protection of sapient life aligns with our collective philosophy. We vote in favor. 3 votes. For were needed for passage. Zirneke shifted in his seat, all 4 arms crossed defensively. The Krelther Dominion was built on strength and discipline. We do not coddle weakness. We demand excellence, forge warriors, create power through adversity. His mandibles clicked. However, the chamber held its breath. We were defeated by humans who proved that strength takes many forms. Perhaps we have been too narrow in our understanding of power. He straightened. The Krelther Dominion votes in favor. But we will be watching the implementation closely. 4 votes. The accords would pass. But Vexthor raised a crystalline appendage. The remaining council members should cast their votes, for the record. Councillor Enarvesh of the Celestial Collective, who had remained silent throughout the debate, finally spoke. Her species, beings of living energy, rarely involve themselves in physical matters. Energy transforms but is never destroyed. Civilizations are the same. This transformation is necessary. We vote in favor. 5 votes. All eyes turned to the 6th council member, Councillor Drekon of the Void Sovereign Empire. His species controlled the largest territory in the galaxy and had remained conspicuously silent during the entire debate. Drekon was ancient, his cybernetic body housing a consciousness that had witnessed 5,000 years of galactic history. The Void Sovereign Empire, he began, his voice like grinding metal, has existed long enough to see patterns others miss. Empires rise on conquest and fall on stagnation. The accords represent change, and change is dangerous. He paused, letting tension build. But the absence of change is death. The galaxy has been static for too long. Perhaps it is time to be dangerous again. He nodded slowly. The Void Sovereign Empire votes in favor. 6 votes in favor. Unanimous. The chamber erupted. Minor species cheered, their representatives weeping with relief and joy. Major species buzzed with shocked conversation, calculating what this meant for their existing arrangements. Varshes and the Sarati delegation stormed out in fury. Vexthor's voice cut through the chaos. By unanimous vote of the Sovereign Council, the Sapient Dignity Accords are hereby enacted into galactic law. All occupations of sapient homeworlds must cease within 90 planetary cycles. The Sapient Recognition Committee will convene within 30 cycles to begin evaluating petitions. As the formal session concluded, Keiko felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. It was Councillor Chen. You changed the timeline, the chrono savant said softly. In most futures I observed, humanity didn't join the council for another 2 centuries. In those timelines, the accords didn't exist until the 23rd century, after 3 major wars and billions of deaths. She smiled, an expression that existed across multiple time states simultaneously. You accelerated progress by 200 years. We just did what was right, Keiko replied. That is why it worked, Chen said. Power without purpose is chaos. Purpose without power is futility. Humanity brought both. Outside the chamber, Commander Rafe stood with Admiral Elizabeth, watching the celebrating crowds through the amphitheater's transparent walls. Think it'll stick? Elizabeth asked. Real change, I mean. Not just political theater. Look at them, Rafe gestured to the diverse species mingling below, powerful and weak, predator and prey, ancient and young, all talking, debating, celebrating together. A month ago, half those species wouldn't have dared speak to the other half. Now they're planning collaborative futures. Dr. Yuki joined them, her datapad showing messages from dozens of alien scientists requesting research partnerships. The Ethereal Collective wants to collaborate on quantum technologies. The Chrono Savants are offering temporal physics data. Even the Krelther Military Academy has requested an exchange program. She shook her head in wonder. We didn't just win a council seat. We started a revolution. Marcus approached the group, his own tablet displaying diplomatic requests. 47 species have requested embassy exchanges with Earth. 12 want cultural sharing programs. 8 are asking for humanitarian assistance. He grinned. We're going to need a bigger diplomatic corps. Keiko found them there, her team, the people who had made the impossible possible. The Lumini have sent a message, she said quietly. Their government in exile wants to thank us personally. They're calling us saviors. We're not saviors, Rafe said firmly. We're just people who refuse to accept that things couldn't change. That's what makes us human, Elizabeth added. Below them, in the amphitheater's grand plaza, something unprecedented was happening. A Lumini refugee, barely adult by their species standards, approached a Krelther warrior. The Krelther, following the old ways, should have seen only prey. Instead, following the new laws, the warrior extended a hand in greeting. The Lumini took it. Such a simple gesture. Such a profound change. You know what the best part is? Yuki said, watching the scene. We're just getting started. The Accords are one law. There are thousands more that need updating. Economic systems to reform. Educational programs to expand. Scientific collaborations to forge. Sounds like a lot of work, Marcus observed. Sounds like a lot of opportunity, Keiko corrected. High Adjudicator Vexthor materialized beside them, his crystalline form glowing with what might have been satisfaction. Ambassador Nairobi, the Council has been operating under the same framework for 10,000 years. In 4 months you have disrupted everything. Some of my colleagues are terrified of what you'll propose next. Good, Keiko said. Comfortable power becomes corrupt power. A little terror keeps us honest. Vexthor's laugh sounded like chiming crystal. The galaxy laughed when humanity requested a council seat. They stopped laughing when you took it. Now they watch in fascination to see what you'll do with it. We're going to use it exactly as intended, Keiko replied. To guide galactic civilization toward a better future. For everyone. Even for species that oppose you? Vexthor asked. Especially for them, Keiko confirmed. That's the difference between ruling and serving. Rulers care only for those who support them. Servants care for everyone, even those who resist change. Vexthor was silent for a moment, his form shifting through complex geometric patterns. I have observed 10,000 years of council politics. Seen hundreds of species rise and fall. Witnessed the best and worst of galactic civilization. He turned his multidimensional gaze fully on Keiko. Humanity may be the youngest species to ever hold a council seat, but you are teaching the oldest among us what it truly means to lead. As the celebration continued into the galactic night, Earth's delegation stood together, watching a galaxy transform. They had come as supplicants seeking recognition. They had proven themselves as warriors earning respect. And now they served as leaders inspiring change. The Sovereign Council chamber's eternal flame, burning since the Council's founding 10 millennia ago, flickered in the viewing screen behind them. Beside it, a new flame had been lit. Humanity's flame. Smaller, newer, but burning just as bright. In the weeks that followed, the Serati withdrew from Lumina Prime under protest but in compliance with galactic law. The Sapient Recognition Committee began evaluating 43 petitions from developing species. 3 major powers announced reforms to their tributary systems. And across the galaxy, minor species began organizing, finding their voices, demanding their dignity. The old guard grumbled that humanity had opened chaos. The young dared to hope humanity had opened possibility. And humanity? Humanity simply continued doing what they'd always done best. Adapting, innovating, challenging assumptions, and refusing to accept that the way things were was the way things had to be. They had laughed when humanity requested a council seat. They stopped laughing when humanity took it. And they would never forget what humanity did with it. Not conquer, not dominate, not exploit. But serve. Inspire. Transform. Because that, ultimately, was the most human thing of all. The audacious belief that the universe could be better, and the stubborn determination to make it so. In the grand amphitheater, the 7th seat, humanity's seat, bore a new inscription in 1,000 languages: power is not what you take. It is what you give. And across the galaxy, 1 trillion voices echoed a new phrase, spoken in wonder, in hope, in gratitude. Humanity, yes.